for being here. Hopefully you'll be able to see the screen shortly. Welcome to the May 2023 Port Outreach Committee meeting. Julia, if you wouldn't mind taking the roll.
Yes, so good afternoon, everybody. So I'd like to remind everyone that the meeting is being recorded, and we ask that you please rename yourself to your full name and the organization that you're with. And if you are a resident, you can put the letter R. And so I will just be going down the list as they appear on my screen. So first up, we have Chuck.
Chuck DeYoung with H.J. Baker.
Thanks, Chuck. Welcome. And then next we have James.
James Autumn with the San Joaquin Building Trades Council.
Thank you, James. Then we have Katie.
Katie Chamberlain, Anchor QEA.
Welcome. Next we have Alec.
Hello, Alec Castellano from the Environmental Justice Program at Catholic Charities.
Thanks, Alec. And then we have Artie.
Hi everyone, Artie Valencia with Restore the Delta. Glad to be here.
Thanks, Artie. And then we have Bonnie.
Hi, I'm Bonnie May. I'm with Momentum.
Thanks, Bonnie. Next we have Dan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dan Duran, Nicola.
Thank you. And then we have Hector.
Hello, Hector Olivares, Catholic Charities, Diocese of Stockton.
Thanks, Hector. Next we have Espy.
Good afternoon, Esperanza Vielma with Environmental Justice Coalition for Water.
Thank you. And then we have John Frederick.
Yeah, John Friedrich with Momentum, also Bonnie's colleague.
Thank you. Let me scroll down here. Okay, next we have Mark.
Hey everyone, Mark Rasmussen, San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District.
Thank you. And then we have Nicole.
Hi, good afternoon. Nicolette Densberger with CARB from the Marine Strategy section.
Thanks, Nicole. Welcome. Then we have Matthew.
Hi, everyone. Matthew Hansen, US EPA Air Division. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Welcome. Then we have Tanisha.
Good evening, everybody. This is Tanisha from Catholic Charities.
Thank you. And next up, we have Taylor.
Hey, everybody. Taylor Williams, Edge Collaborative.
Thanks, Taylor. Then we have Willie.
Hi, everyone. Willie Marquez, resident.
Thank you, Willie. Welcome. And then to introduce at the Port of Stockton, we have Commissioner Atwater, Port Director Kirk De Jesus, Jason Katindoy, Jeffrey Wingfield, Karen Romero, and myself. And with that, I will turn it back on over to you, Jeff. Thank you, everybody.
Great, thanks, Julia. All right, well, just a few quick updates before we get into the presentations today. We've got Nicola, who's a truck manufacturer, who's going to be speaking, and then there was our electric blueprint from our last meeting was bumped until this week, so we're going to do that as well. So just a few updates. We had we presented over at Earth Day at Victory Park. I think a few of you were there. We saw Sierra Club that was over there. Little Manila Rising was there. I think we saw Catholic Charities there as well. It was a great afternoon, great opportunity to engage with the public. We did a lot of education about the port. We gave out plants to, I think, nearly 300 people, and just a good opportunity to connect. We also made some other connections with San Joaquin or Stockton Unified School District. So, and that led into, will lead into other opportunities for us to go out and engage with additional elementary and junior high and high school students. And speaking of that, we had a presentation for the fifth graders in the science class at Washington Elementary. We did our owl presentation. The owls are currently nesting right now. And so what we did was we go over to dissect some of the owl pellets. We talked to them about the port and its importance, and just do a little bit of education. And that was really well received over there. Then just this last week, we had environmental resource students from Merlot Institute. They came out for a port tour. Those were high school students. And then tomorrow night, we're actually hosting the 7th and 8th graders from Washington Elementary for a dinner dance out here at the port at the Lindley House. We had so a couple updates on equipment. I'm excited to announce that one of our tug companies, Brusco Tug, they gave us an update. They have repowered a Tier 3 conventional tugboat. It should be arriving at the port in June 2023, next month. They've also started construction on 2 Tier 4 tractor tugs, and they are scheduled to be launched before 2024. So we're excited to announce that the tugs, that I think everyone's aware of, the emissions that we saw from the emissions inventories on tugs were quite high. And so we are taking efforts to improve those. Also, one of the locomotives that is operated by Central California Traction Company, they have submitted the grant application to repower one of their Tier 0 tugs to Tier 4. So that process is underway. We've also undertaken and we're started our 2022 emission inventory. So that will probably be a few months long undertaking. And so we'll be reporting back and giving updates as that becomes final. I did want to mention that Biotech, that's the company that the hydrogen production company that we discussed at last meeting. You can look for their environmental document. It will be going out for public review in the next few days, if not today. And then we're also in the process of planning for our next waterway cleanup. So you will hopefully get an update on that as well. Does anybody have any questions on any updates? Okay, hearing none. We'll turn it over to our first presenter. We've been working with Nikola for, I guess, probably about a year. They were founded in 2015. They are a leading designer and manufacturer of heavy-duty commercial battery electric and fuel cell electric vehicles. And in March, we had them come out. I think I shared with the group then. We had them come out, do a showcase and a test drive for tenants and anybody else in the community that come out and see the new trucks and new technology that they are offering. And so we wanted to offer them an opportunity to come and share a little bit more about their trucks. And so I'll turn it over to John, and appreciate you guys being here. Thanks, Dan.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I have my daughter here trying to help me get ready to put my presentation on the screen. But I'd like to say thank you for having us. Thank you for hosting us at the port. I know we scrambled quite a bit to introduce a battery electric vehicle and a hydrogen vehicle at the port, and getting through the insurance requirements and all the stuff. You guys were great hosts, and we appreciate that. And we've had great success from that visit. With that being said, Nikola is a company that manufactures battery electric vehicles in Arizona and fuel cell vehicles in Arizona also. I'm fortunate enough to live here in Stockton, California. And it's kind of funny because I live right on the Delta, and I grew up with 4 children, and my daughters have named the seals across the way that we hear every night, Sylvester and Sebastian, right? And so, we're all here together doing the same thing. So with that, let's see if my daughter can put the video on. Can you do that, or the presentation? Oh, there we go. Share screen.
Yeah, John, I think we did a recent count, and the sea lions there's about 30 of them out here now. It's
that's amazing, isn't it? You had it.
Yeah.
Okay, they go down here. How come it's not working? Oh, there we go. Okay, can you see the screen, folks?
Perfect, yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, now I'm going to see if I can get rid of everybody on the site. Okay, so we are a pioneering company in 2 technologies, right? 1 truck, 2 technologies. We have a battery electric vehicle. We call it BEV, and we have a fuel cell electric vehicle, which we call the FCEV, fuel cell electric vehicle. And we're producing those right now online, where a lot of our competitors who are in the battery world are making their trucks offline. A Peterbilt or a Volvo or a Freightliner will come down the line, they'll add batteries to it. We build these trucks strictly as zero emission trucks. We are not a diesel OEM who dabbles in the zero emission world. We are a zero emission company. So if you look at the left, right, we have our Tre battery, BEV, battery electric truck. We have Tre fuel cell electric truck. If you look down below, we have a factory in Coolidge, Arizona that is putting out these trucks and building them on a daily basis, right? They're actually coming off the line and we're making vehicles, right? We have a very aggressive plan to do 20,000 vehicles per year in the next 3 to 5 years. And we want to be the leaders in fuel cell and battery electric vehicles. Let's see here. The neat thing about our trucks, right? Advanced technology, right? Battery electric. If you look at most of the trucks that come in and out of the port, you know, most of those trucks are 450 horsepower and 1,650 foot-pounds of torque. Our battery electric vehicles, like a Tesla, you see people racing around in Teslas, their cars, how fast they are. We generate 645 horsepower and 12,000 foot-pounds of torque. So these trucks are monsters. They can haul massive loads and get up and down the highway, producing zero emission. If you look, state of the art, right? Our cabs are all touch screen, video, touch screen, turn on the air conditioner, turn on whatever you want to turn on, right? Diagnostics, the whole bit. Very, very user friendly, very nice. We picked the European design because it was cheaper for us to buy a cab from Europe than design our own. So we're kind of going back in the old technology, old days with cab overs, and it just has a different look and a different feel. So we have an electric axle. We call it the e-axle. It has 2 motors on it that drives the truck up and down. We have 9 on the battery electric vehicle, 9 of these batteries on board, 733 kilowatts, which is twice what the industry has. So we're the leaders there as far as how much power we carry as we go up and down the road. So that's what the vehicle looks like. It's cab over design. As we can see, 3-axle tractor, both the BEV, battery electric vehicle, and the fuel cell electric vehicle, both have this configuration. We hope to come out in 2025 with a conventional style truck. And that's when you say conventional, that is a truck that has a nose on it or a hood on it. But right now, this is the vehicle that we came to market with. Let me keep going here. So something else we are able to do, right? So we talk about infrastructure, right? Everybody says, well, that's great. I'm going to buy your truck, John. How am I going to charge it? So we come to market with, to the left, what we call an MCT, mobile charging trailer. So we can come to market for a customer that doesn't have his chargers in place yet and bring an MCT, mobile charging trailer, to their facility, plug it into their panel, and charge their vehicles until they're ready to get their own infrastructure. To the right, we have what we call our e-skids, right? And they're fast chargers, right? We can do 2 on there or 1 on there. They can go on the ground. They don't take a lot of permitting and a lot of infrastructure. They're kind of a portable type of charger. And so we can come to market very, very quickly and support the vehicles with charging, because that's one of the things that's very tough immediately as we get our customers rolling in on the road. Let me back up here. And so the battery electric truck, right? Everybody talks about the battery electric truck and what can it do? Our truck can go 330 miles. Most of our competitors go 100 to 120 miles, right? And so the battery electric truck is a truck that will go, typically it goes out, does its work during the day and comes home so it can charge at night. It's not an over-the-road truck. It's not a truck that wants to go out for a long distance, go 150 miles out, do your stuff, come back home, plug in overnight, and go out the next day, right? So we go to the fuel cell truck, and this is the fuel cell truck. Looks very familiar, very close to what the battery electric truck did. But as you can see on the back of this truck, right, there's a little like a cabin in the back. There's 3 hydrogen fuel cells back there and 2 straddling the truck on the frame rails like you would have on a diesel truck. So we can haul 75 kilograms of of hydrogen, 75 kilograms of hydrogen. We can go 500 miles with this vehicle, which is a leader in the industry. We have one competitor that's coming to the Port of Oakland in the next month and a half. Their range is much less, their power is much less. I was with the folks at the Port of Oakland on Monday, and so they're bringing their product to market as we're going to bring ours to market at the same time. Compared to the battery electric, right? What makes the battery electric different from the fuel cell truck? Well, it's 2 things. One, when you're a full battery truck, you're heavy, right? We have 9 batteries on there that brings the truck up to 29,000 pounds. The typical Class 8 truck weighs about 18,000 pounds. So we're 10,000 pounds heavy, which means something has to give. And what has to give is the payload, right? So it's tough for a battery electric truck to really compete in the trucking world when you can haul 10,000, you have to haul 10,000 pounds less payload. With the fuel cell truck, we lose 5,000 pounds because we only have 2 batteries on board. We get more range, we can fuel in 20 minutes, and we have the lighter weight, as it says right there. Okay. And once again, you know, we have on the fuel cell truck, we have the single electronic rear axle. In the middle, you can see what the fuel cell is, right? And so what the fuel cell does, it takes the hydrogen out of the tanks, runs it through the fuel cell, it makes electricity, and then it goes directly and charges the axle, right? As opposed to a battery electric vehicle that charges the axle through the battery. So it's great technology, 0 emission tailpipe on both of these trucks. Okay, we go further. Where are we at? All right. So, you know, the industry says, hey, guess what? Fuel cell is the way to go because of the weight and range in the trucking industry, right? You want to go far and you need to be able to haul payload. So in 2021, we came out with our alpha trucks. They've been running up and down the road. 2022, we had our beta trucks that were running all over the country. We had one at the Port of Stockton a few months ago. 2023, we're building our Gamma trucks. So we're building 10 trucks that will run mostly through Southern California because we have the fueling infrastructure there. And we're going to demo those to 25, 30 customers and run these fuel cell trucks throughout California. We have plans to have them come up to the Port of Oakland area also and hopefully dabble into the fuel system that they have up there. We will be in full production, online full production, as opposed to the Hyundai truck that comes from overseas in the 4th quarter of 2023 with a fuel cell electric truck that we demonstrated to you folks at the port a month and a half ago or so. So with that being said, I mean, here's some tests. Everybody says, oh my God, you're hauling hydrogen. What happens? You know, everybody remembers the Hindenburg and the whole thing. We have tested these vehicles big time with crash tests. You can see us crashing into the fuel cells on the side, different angles, the whole thing. We have tested these vehicles. They are safe. They are safe, they are clean, and we're very happy to bring this product to market. Let's see what else. And so that's who we are. That's our truck. That's what we got going on. We've been successful in Los Angeles big time with our battery electric truck in the ports. We have over 100 of them running right now. And just excited to be a part of what you guys have going on at the port. And at this point, if you have any questions, let me know.
Great, thanks, John. Espy?
Hi, yes, good afternoon. Thank you for your presentation. It was very informative. I just had a question. So on you have the different types of chargers, like the mobile charging trailer and then the charging station, that's the fast charger. Can any of those, or do you have any that can be like hooked up to solar, like with maybe a standalone battery or something, or if it could be part of a behind the meter type of project? The reason I'm asking is because we're trying to work on these various like projects and also see what the connectivity would look like in terms of the valley with not just the EV vehicles, but hopefully with the trucks as well.
Yeah, so we partner with some companies who are building out charging stations, right? And so when you talk about solar, we have a customer that we're sold some trucks to who are building out charging stations. They're doing 200 acres in Bakersfield of solar panels to support their charging network. I think the way it works is you're going to generate electricity. It's kind of going to go to the grid unless you're going to store it in batteries. And then you're going to get the credit for what you've generated to go back into the trucks that you're running. So yes, there's a benefit to put up solar to support these vehicles.
Okay,
but I have a question about the portable charger. How is that charged?
So the MCT is just a charger, right? So you're going to hardwire it into your panel, right? So it doesn't come. So you could have a diesel generator or a natural gas generator that runs it. Our design is we bring it to the customer and it's hardwired into their panel, and then the truck charges off of that. But we have had customers who have demoed trucks, and because their infrastructure didn't have enough power, they rented a diesel generator to power the MCT mobile charging trailer to charge the truck. Kind of defeats the purpose of what we're trying to do, but it is one way to get trucks out there and demo them to customers. But we like to have them hardwired into a facility.
John, if I can interrupt and just add some more to that. And David, to answer also your question, 480 volt, 3-phase with the 200 amp breaker are the power requirements for either the MCT or the E-skid. And then to add to John's point, right, it could be hooked up via generator. We have a customer in Port of Los Angeles that is using a clean natural gas generator to power the E-skid and then provide power to the truck. So
Hector, you have your hand up.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. So the truck routes, proposed truck routes would be just a short range routes, right? We're looking from the port to say warehouses or locations within the valley, or going the other way, or just a mixture of both?
So the truck, the battery electric vehicle has a 300-mile range. So you could, in theory, go all the way across the United States if you found charging solutions along the way, right? The infrastructure is a little bit weak at this time. So where this vehicle fits today is a go out, do your deliveries and come home, which is a lot of what a lot of warehousing does in the Central Valley, right? So go out, go to Modesto from Stockton, go to maybe even Fresno, turn around and come back, depending on how many stops you have, is what the fit is for this vehicle.
And one quick question, and maybe this is for more for the port, whether you can answer it or not. So if you're encouraging the port users right there, the residents, to replace their diesel trucks, heavy trucks, with something like one of the hybrid trucks or the electric vehicles, are you also going to encourage them to say retire the truck, not put it back into sale into the market, and actually just either part it out or take it out of commission altogether?
Well, we don't have any control over that, Hector, but a lot of the grants that we're encouraging and we are soliciting to our tenants do have those types of requirements. So it would be up to the grant versus what the port's influence.
Yeah, so I'll touch on that. Good point. So right now, if you were to take and say, I want to get a battery electric truck, right? And if you went out, there's certain incentives or vouchers through the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District, which runs from Bakersfield through Sacramento or up to Stockton, basically. You can get $150,000. If you have a vehicle that has an engine in it that's a 2011 to a 2016, they will double down, and you can almost get $400,000 in incentives to shoot a truck, get it off the road, put a hole in the block, take it off the market, and buy a battery electric truck. But you can also get incentives, probably half of the $400,000 if you don't have a vehicle to sacrifice. So you can do one or the other.
Well, thank you.
Willie?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So I was just curious what the outcome was of the demo last month. Were there purchase orders? What was the interest like? Did the port decide to issue some kind of incentive to stack on top of an order? I'm just kind of curious what the result was as a result, or what the result was from that demo with Nikola coming out to Stockton. Should we expect them to be on the road anytime soon, to be in the port? Any details like that?
So from us, the manufacturer, the demo was very, very good. We have a lot of interest. One of the customers who came was Northern Refrigerated out in Modesto, California, or Turlock, California. We're getting ready to set up a demo at their facility to let them have a truck, battery electric truck, for a month and run up and down the road. So yes, we've had some success. We met some friends. We're demoing some trucks, hopefully going to sell some trucks, with San Joaquin County and the potential up to $400,000. It makes our truck very, very attractive because our truck is expensive. It's a $400,000 truck plus taxes. So, you can get into this truck for less than $100,000, and the fuel savings, right? Because you're going to save almost $2,500 a month not buying diesel versus the electric, and there's almost no maintenance costs associated with running an electric truck. No oil changes, no injectors, no turbos, no SCR, no DPS. All the things that cause huge maintenance issues for diesel truck people do not exist on our truck. So yes, the answer to your question is we've had some success. Have we had as much as we wanted? No. This is a tough sell. Selling a battery electric truck to the traditional diesel guy is a hard sell. And so we're just doing one deal at a time. And I guess, thank you. We had some fun there.
Yeah. And so Willie, one of the things that we're doing is sending out opportunities, grant opportunities, and offering to be a partner in submitting a grant to attract these trucks to any of our tenants. That's the incentive there. SB, you had your hand up again?
Yeah, I just had a quick follow-up question on the mobile charging trailer that does qualify then for the incentive program through the Air District. And the other question that I have is, through your company, where you're working locally with the high schools and or community colleges.
Sorry, you broke up a little bit in the middle. Was that question for the port? I couldn't understand it.
Yeah, so I don't know if through the company or through the port, in terms of seeing if that mobile charging trailer was eligible for the incentive programs through the Air District. And then if the company, the trucking company, had any kind of program set in place already with workforce development with any of the local agencies or colleges.
Got it.
So there are incentives for infrastructure and charging that are available. It's the money it's weird. It all depends on what Air District you're in, who has the money at the time. So yeah, there is money for infrastructure. As far as your second question, I'm not sure from a manufacturer standpoint where we could help on that.
I can provide some visibility just in regards to who we've sold to. Fresno Unified School District just took a Trey Bev battery electric truck, particularly for Duncan Polytechnical High School and their Class 8 heavy duty technician training program. So it is being used by various different schools. But Nikola as a company does offer, to a certain extent, some level of training to provide technicians that fleets may have in-house that ultimately end up purchasing a tractor, whether it be fuel cell or battery electric.
Yeah, there's a big need,
Thank you.
especially here in the Stockton area, just for the workforce development. And Taylor's probably going to talk about that next. And just as far as training locals on how to work on this new technology equipment. We're seeing that with a lot of our forklifts that we have. We have to bring somebody up from Southern California instead of just going across, having somebody here in town. But Taylor, go ahead.
Oh, you teed me up so well. I wish I could deliver. I had a question about how you're entering markets, John. And I have one question for Nikola and one for the port, I think. But yeah, the first question I have is I saw that, some of the recharging time for hydrogen fuel cell was dependent on technology improvements, which I'm curious about what that means. But like more broadly, like how are you thinking about like how you enter markets relative to when you anticipate that infrastructure actually being available, right? Like there is plenty of like legislation, there's programs coming down to subsidize and pay for charging infrastructure for hydrogen fuel cell, but that movement's still building. So how, and I know that there is a proposed project at the port right now about producing hydrogen that's currently in the works, but how are you, given in Q4 of this year, you're thinking about rolling out these trucks? Like, how are you anticipating that relative to the infrastructure that's actually available to serve those?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so infrastructure, zero at this point, right? So what we have done is we figured out that there's no way to go to market with this truck without a fueling solution. So we're going to deploy in Southern California what we call mobile fueling stations, all right? And when we say they're mobile to the point that they can be picked up and moved somewhere else. So not a temporary, a permanent built-in fueling facility. A fueling facility, unfortunately, is going to cost $10 to $15 million, like a station, a gas station. So our solution is we have built and have ready to deploy, I think 9 right now, mobile fueling terminals that we're going to put out that will be in the areas where we've identified customers who want our trucks, and we will fuel those vehicles from those stations as we build out other stations. We made a big announcement last week at the ACT Expo, Advanced Clean Technology Expo. We partnered with another company who wants to build out 50 stations in California for us. And building out the infrastructure is going to be very important for us. So our short-term solution is the mobile fueling stations, where our customers will be able to come in, fuel 40 to 60 trucks a day as we ramp up and get going. It's tough. As you guys know, you're looking at making hydrogen in the port of Stockton. I was at the port of Oakland on Monday. Hyundai is bringing 9 fuel cell trucks in to work at the port. They have a mobile fueling solution going in place there in the next month and a half. And that's kind of how we see the whole thing being built out. It's a tough deal, right? Because hydrogen is, very abundant, but it's not around. The thing that's different about our truck versus everybody else's is we fuel at a very, very high pressure. So we're able to fuel the truck in 20 minutes, right? And they talk about, PSI or bar, most of the stuff is 300 bar, 4,000 PSI. Our truck is capable of fueling at 10,000 PSI or 700 bar so that you can fuel quickly, get in and get out. And so the stations are going to be built to support that type of fueling, fast in and out. And it's tough. We talk about the chicken and the egg, right? What comes first? You got to have the hydrogen for the truck to work. And so, the funny story we talk about at corporate is the chicken and the egg, right? And so you bring up a great point.
That's exactly what I was gonna mention, John. Okay, we've got a couple more questions. I'm gonna ask that they be quick because I'm committed to getting to momentum on our blueprint today. So Artie, you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick question. I did want clarification on the weight of these trucks and how much payload they can carry again. How do they compare to traditional trucks? I wanted to see that because heavy trucks can often degrade roads or nearby levee roads, depending on which routes are taken. Thank you.
Yeah, so in the state and the United States, all trucks can only haul, for the most part, unless you're a heavy haul truck, 80,000 pounds. 3 years ago, when LNG and CNG came to the market, the government allowed an additional 2,000 pounds, so up to 82,000 pounds. Truck, driver, trailer, payload, fuel, the whole thing going up and down the road. Our truck fits into that same thing, although we're not happy about that. At 82,000 pounds, what we can haul, we can axle out. We're not going to hurt the roads at all. Unfortunately, we're 10,000 pounds heavier in the battery electric vehicle, 5,000 pounds heavier in the fuel cell truck. So that means the payloads, the stuff in the back that the guy's hauling, has to be reduced. So we fit a small market, right? We fit a small market of people that have the lighter payloads. So a typical guy going up the road, up and down the road, wants to haul 48,000 pounds. We need a guy that wants to haul 36, right? And so we have to abide by all the rules and regulations of the 82,000. And what suffers with our vehicles is the payload.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much, John. Thank you, Dan, for being here. We really appreciate it. If there's any other questions, feel free to email myself or Julia, and we can get those answered for you. But we do need to move on to the blueprint. We appreciate Momentum for being here. And I wanted to just, while you're teeing that up or getting that ready, Julia, I was going to just announce, we did have a few other people join. We had Commissioner Trezza from our Board of Port Commissioners join. We had Margot Prouse, who's a resident and with Sierra Club, she joined. And we had Douglas Vigil, who's also a resident. Did I miss anybody else who joined late? Okay.
Yes,
All right.
and Douglas, I wanted to make sure you were able to pin your interpreter.
You might be, oh, did we lose Douglas? I don't see him now. Oh, no, he's there.
I'm still here. I still feel my interpreter, yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, well, for the past, what has it been, at least a year, we've been working on a medium duty and heavy duty electric vehicle blueprint at the port, kind of a guide really to help us move forward the electrification and reducing emissions of heavy duty and medium duty equipment through the port. And so Momentum's been a key partner in helping us through this. We did it through a grant through the California Energy Commission. And so I wanted to ask John and Bonnie if they would take over and give us an update.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Bonnie, and I'm here with my colleague, John, to share a little bit about this medium and heavy duty electrification blueprint. So a brief agenda for today's presentation. We'll go over the background of the project team, scope of work, key takeaways from each major task, and then we'll end with some conclusions and next steps for the port. We'll be happy to answer questions at the end of the presentation. And if you have any questions throughout, feel free to drop them in the chat and we can address those at the end too. A little bit of background on the port itself. The Port of Stockton is a self-supporting special district inland port and municipal electric utility. And this structure as a landlord port, operating port, and stevedoring provider, and as a utility operator, positions Stockton extremely well to adopt and deploy zero-emission vehicles and equipment. And this transition has already begun with several demonstration projects that have already taken place in recent years, like the deployment of electric forklifts and electric railcar movers. Like Jeff mentioned, the blueprint is a result of Assembly Bill 118, which created the Clean Transportation Program. And under the Clean Transportation Program, the California Energy Commission issued this grant funding opportunity for blueprints for medium and heavy duty zero emission vehicle infrastructure. So this blueprint was fully funded by the California Energy Commission. And the goal is to leverage the port's knowledge gained through its ongoing zero emission vehicle deployments and demonstrations to develop an actionable and replicable series of steps to support the public and private adoption of medium and heavy duty zero emission vehicles, or ZEVs. This was a chance to explore some of the issues related to zero emission vehicles and assess the current planning and regulatory landscape. Importantly, the California Advanced Clean Fleets Regulation will require all drayage trucks that enter seaports and intermodal rail yards to be zero emission by 2035. So this blueprint will help support a steady transition in compliance with this, as well as any other future regulations. And the project team for the blueprint was the Port of Stockton, Momentum, where John and I are from, Rebel Marketing, and Starcrest Consulting. The blueprint addressed challenges and opportunities for the port in its transition towards zero emission vehicles and equipment. So the primary goals and objectives of the agreement were to participate in stakeholder engagement, which includes coordination with the Stockton AB 617 program, to document a fleet inventory, to create a design for public and private infrastructure access, to design a phased approach and rollout plan for infrastructure deployment, to identify technologies, systems, and policies that will support the transition, and finally, to create an actionable and replicable guide to transition. And the scope of work of the blueprint included key tasks, which I'll go over individually in the next few sections, and all of it culminated in the final blueprint. Stakeholder engagement occurred throughout the process. Some of that included these Port Outreach Committee meetings, where the blueprint process was presented to solicit information and input from community members, which was incorporated into the blueprint. Other critical elements included a preliminary zero emission vehicle fleet and infrastructure design, resiliency planning for climate change and natural disasters, a critical pathway analysis, workforce analysis and knowledge transfer plan, and then the final blueprint document. So the purpose of stakeholder engagement was to gather the perspectives, opinions, concerns, and input of community members and internal and external stakeholder groups to influence blueprint development. Every group listed here has a different relationship to ZEV planning with overlapping goals and objectives. And a few of the things that we learned were that this transition is an opportunity to redefine community relationships, recognizing that these changes will have a big impact on the community, and it's important to gather their feedback before, during, and after the process. We also learned that funding opportunities are important incentives in the ZEV transition, and many of these funding opportunities require and emphasize community relationships and community benefits. Education and awareness are also necessary in order to dispel myths and address concerns over changes that accompany the transition, helping people understand the risks, challenges, benefits, and long-term positive outcomes of decarbonization. Moving on, the ZEV fleet selection and infrastructure design task in the blueprint focused on understanding the types of shoreside vehicles that visit and operate at the Port of Stockton and their operational needs. The biggest conclusions from this assessment were that the port has about 85 vehicles that are well suited for zero emissions, and that out of 105 pieces of terminal equipment, there's some variability in the feasibility of zero emissions due to different duty cycles. For example, a lot of heavy duty trucks typically stay within a 30-mile radius of the port, and that's compatible with available battery electric technology. But longer runs might require hydrogen in the future, or a delayed transition to battery electric, because right now, longer duty cycle battery electric heavy duty vehicles are not yet widely available. This assessment focused on not just port and tenant-owned vehicles, but also port visiting vehicles that will need to take advantage of zero emission infrastructure. The port has to predict ZEV adoption to a certain degree for trucks that will visit the port in order to develop an appropriately phased infrastructure rollout plan. And in all, this preliminary assessment identified numerous commercially available options for light and medium duty vehicles at the port, noting that heavy duty ZEVs are still largely in development and not as widely accessible yet. So it is expected that battery electric will be the dominant platform at the port. Like I said, at this time, the commercial availability and reliability of medium and heavy duty hydrogen is not as established as battery electric, though it is growing. So right now, battery electric appears to be the most cost-effective solution for the port's immediate needs. Based on estimated demand and capacity of the transition-ready vehicles and equipment, our preliminary design layout estimates a need for 230 new charging units, in addition to about 30 that currently exist at the port. These charging units would be utilized by port and tenant-owned equipment and vehicles, in addition to employee-owned vehicles. In all, the transition is expected to cost around $40 million, with $29 million of that borne by the port and the remaining costs split among the tenants. I know that looks like a big number, but one caveat here is that while that number is just an estimate of upfront equipment costs, it doesn't factor in the operational and maintenance cost savings over the equipment lifetime, which are significant when compared to diesel. It doesn't factor in the vast potential for funding and financing opportunities that are available, especially with the amount of state and federal incentives that target electric vehicles and infrastructure. So while this is a pretty large number, it's a very high end and broad estimate, and there's a lot of factors that will reduce both the upfront and lifetime costs of electric vehicles. Another component of the blueprint was resiliency planning. Natural disasters can lead to significant physical damage and operational downtime, and the increased electrical infrastructure associated with ZEV deployment will leave more infrastructure vulnerable to damage, which is important to consider in the context of climate change and increasingly extreme weather. This report identified that flooding and earthquakes pose primary concerns to Stockton's electrified infrastructure and operations. And then there's also some potential indirect impacts from fires and heat, which can cause grid disruptions. There are some public efforts ongoing to improve the levees that protect the Port of Stockton, but the port and the city could invest more in on-site private flood mitigation. And to protect against grid disruptions, the port could also invest in private on-site electricity generation and storage, which John will talk about a little bit later. The critical pathway analysis was intended to segment phased portions of the overall infrastructure build out and develop a prioritization methodology to reduce the risk of stranded assets or abandoned investments in the process of the zero emission vehicle rollout. So a few of the principles that we identified here to contribute to a really successful transition include the use of existing assets and the identification of ZEV-ready infrastructure, which ensures that new or updated infrastructure will be able to be used to its full potential, considering demand and capacity needs and estimates. A few strategic considerations that influence the ZEV rollout plan recommendations include adherence to government mandates, such as the California Advanced Clean Fleets Regulation, as well as internal decarbonization targets that are set by the port. The ZEV transition is also a really big opportunity to improve job quality and further equity in surrounding communities by providing opportunities for workforce development, high quality technical positions, and energy security for the community. And I'll pass it to John to talk a little bit more about our key takeaways and conclusions and next steps.
Thank you, Bonnie. Good evening or afternoon, everybody. So next steps, I think the goal here is to have a blueprint that is used and useful and not sitting on the shelf. So, and we've laid out a number of key elements to put this into practice, starting with just ongoing stakeholder engagement, such as the Port Outreach Committee meeting tonight, and to continue to explore workforce development opportunities. We certainly think electrification means new jobs, whether electricians or doing maintenance, taking over from the manufacturers to do that maintenance on site, which is critical to keeping maintenance costs low and reducing downtime. And then the next piece is really critical. John before mentioned the Advanced Clean Transportation Expo last week, where 12,000 folks from around the country attended. A key theme was delays in infrastructure deployment. So really to get on top of this transition as required by new Advanced Clean Fleet regulation and the port's own goals, it's really time to start planning and investing in charging infrastructure. So the currently available zero emission technologies, particularly battery electrics, suit the port's on and off-road assets, cargo handling equipment, as well as fleet vehicles, certainly in employee vehicles and port visiting trucks. Bonnie talked about the cost of transitioning all equipment and vehicles. I would add, in addition to the maintenance, fuels, and savings and revenue that can be generated from programs such as low carbon fuel standard program, this does not count the difference between electric and diesel equipment. In various analyses we've done, that difference can be whittled down to close to parity or zero once you maximize available funding sources, and when you do that, you can realize some pretty quick returns on investment with operational savings. And so, of course, implementing the blueprint will have large benefits. We talked about the workforce benefits, but also air quality and general positive impacts on communities that neighbor the port. So next slide. So the next steps, we concluded that to support the 230 pieces of charging equipment would add an electrical load of approximately 15 megawatts with an M. That would be in a case where all equipment is transitioned to electric and it's all plugged in at the same time. So that can certainly be mitigated with managed charging and with on-site renewables and battery storage. The blueprint really gets into recommended priorities for the first electric charging infrastructure deployments, starting with charging for employee vehicles and also port and tenant-owned cargo handling equipment, and then followed by infrastructure for port visiting vehicles. So that's what we talk about with prioritization and then a fleet transition schedule, a phasing plan. So all of that is within a context of limited electric capacity, and you have to kind of work within what's available. We've identified the need for a system impact study with PG&E, and that can take up to a year. And so it's really important to kind of identify those first EV charging infrastructure priorities and deployment plan and get that assessment started with PG&E to given, as we said up front, that can often be the largest delay in this transition, is deploying that infrastructure and working with a utility to make the interconnection. And we again looked at the benefits on-site solar arrays and battery system. Envision, say truck solar ports or carports on site. And then once kind of that phasing schedule and priorities are determined, starting the process of looking for every available bit of state and federal funding, which is abundant right now. The regulations in California are the strongest and most ambitious in the country, and also the funding opportunities to pay for that for early adopters to make the transition are way larger than anywhere else in the country. So it's both a requirement, but also an opportunity for those who move quickly. The funding is not guaranteed to be there forever. We mentioned the charging plan to maximize efficiencies. You're not drawing 15 megawatts of power all at once, and requiring substation upgrades and whatnot. So just looking for ways to deploy the charging infrastructure efficiently. The operation and maintenance plans, again, being key to realizing savings and keeping uptime of equipment, and being able to do workforce training to do that on site. And then finally, the point of the CEC funding these blueprints was to share lessons learned with other ports and entities that can learn from the lessons. So tonight's presentation is part of that effort. So with that, I think we're open to any questions you may have.
Yeah, I'll just say, John, real quick. I mean, one of the things that we're running into right now is an issue with PG&E on just being able to install some new chargers that we just got from a grant opportunity through the Energy Commission. So yeah, unfortunately, we can move fairly quickly on the port side where we are the electric utility, which is about 1,400 acres of the port, but the other 600 that is the East Complex is under PG&E jurisdiction, and it's been a lot more challenging, unfortunately. Is there any questions? Willie.
Yeah, so thank you for the presentation. I really enjoyed how thorough the blueprint was. I was curious about what the port's reaction to the blueprint is. Is it realistic? Is it aggressive? Is it something that you plan to follow? Especially with that 40 million budget. Well, what was the reaction to that? Is that budgeted? Is that going to be budgeted for the next 5-10 years? Like what's the next steps based on that?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for all the port staff to get up off the floor, and then but yeah, that was a pretty big number. As Bonnie said, it doesn't take into account a lot of the grant opportunities that are out there, and what we're seeing is currently, you know, we're getting about 80%, 50 to 80% of new equipment that we're getting right now is funded by a grant opportunity, but that's going to dry up too. You know, right now, because there's such a hard push and because it's so new, you know, there is a lot of money out there. We are budgeting every year for a certain amount of equipment to be upgraded. This is, you know, we haven't been able to share this entire blueprint yet and talk to the team. We actually have a meeting set up next week to sit down and go through and figure out, okay, how are we going to implement this? You know, I think, you know, our goal in the state is pushing to get to zero emission. And so we will probably in the next 6 months develop a plan. The Clean Air Plan will also be a part of that as far as, you know, how do we implement, what do we do, what percentage of our equipment can we upgrade every year? And so it's our budget season right now, so it's a good opportunity to take a first look. But we will develop a plan in the very near future of how we're going to implement this as well as the Clean Air Plan.
Got it. And if there are no other questions, I have a follow-up.
Sure.
For the team that put the blueprint together, I'm curious, how does this contrast to other ports? Is the cost higher because of our geographic region, because of the infrastructure, because of the tenants? I'm just kind of curious what stood out to this Port of Stockton's blueprint versus another port.
Yeah, I can take that. We've done projects related to the Port of San Diego, also Sacramento, and you know, every port has a different set of equipment and trucks. Some other ports have been focusing a little bit more on infrastructure for port visiting vehicles, which here we didn't anticipate that charging infrastructure need. That will be an additional layer of analysis and certainly an additional electric load to plan for. But you know, it's a similar, I think, scale of equipment and related costs. There's no real difference on the cost per equipment, you know, for the Port of Stockton. And as John mentioned in a previous discussion, the air districts around the state have different incentive programs. So that could change the net cost for the Port of Stockton compared to, say, those that are in the South Coast Air Quality Management District, who have different incentive programs. So some of those regional funding programs can kind of make a big difference in the bottom line. But the general lay of the land is certainly very similar.
Yeah, Willie, that's a good question. I would estimate, and John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that our cost is probably a lot more than, say, the Port of West Sacramento, and probably closer to maybe what you'd see at the Port of San Diego. I'm sorry, yeah, we're probably closer to what you'd see at the Port of San Diego versus West Sacramento. Is that accurate?
Yes. And I would, and just to emphasize again, like all ports, as Bonnie mentioned, I mean, drayage trucks have to be 100% zero emission by 2035. And many of the funding programs, especially from the air districts, stop funding once it's required. So those that get ahead of the regulatory mandate can benefit from the financial largesse that exists now. So I think, again, there's some benefit to moving early to pay down a big chunk of those upfront costs.
Yeah. SB?
Yeah, I just had a question. I don't know if maybe I missed it in the presentation, but what is like the current like usage of the port in terms of the gigawatt for the electric use?
Well, I think we have a Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but a 40 megawatts total capacity on the east and west campuses. And we were looking at here a incremental 15 megawatt increase for electrification of all the equipment analyzed. So it's a significant percentage increase, and that doesn't include the infrastructure that would be needed for port visiting vehicles, which, you know, if you just imagine 10 350 kW charging stations is another 3.5 megawatts. So it adds up quickly. Then that's why we just really highlighted the need to plan, you know, for the port owned and operated infrastructure, as well as the PG&E operated infrastructure to do that planning and do the system impact. And where needed, and do phasing probably within existing capacities, and then start planning for any upstream infrastructure upgrades needed, you know, all the way potentially to new substations, which can take several years. So that again, that planning is critical, and given the time it takes to do some more substantial upgrades. But right, a lot of the early phasing and the early work and the first kind of the pilot phase and next steps, employee vehicle charging and whatnot, level 2 charging can be done within existing capacity. It's just that the full build out will definitely probably take some system upgrades, and that's why we also looked at on-site solar and batteries to alleviate some of that capacity need.
Okay, so then in terms of that, like the forecasting, then what do you think? You were saying 40 like on each side in terms of, that wasn't megawatts, you said that was so then, and then if you add the other infrastructure in place, like what is the forecast like currently at, or is the need?
What's the additional need to cover electrifying the entire port equipment? Is that what you're saying?
Correct, yes.
That would be the additional 15 megawatts.
15
Yeah.
megawatts.
Okay.
And that not counting infrastructure that may be deployed in the future to support the 100% zero emission trucks visiting the port by 2035. So at some point, you know, that will need to be contemplated, how to participate in that charging infrastructure versus what's provided regionally. And from the places where the trucks are domiciled, what's the relative role of the port in supplying that. But so it's 15, not counting that. So you can imagine 20 plus with that considered.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I don't see any other questions in regards to the blueprint. So thank you, John. Thank you, Bonnie, so much for your presentation. We appreciate it, and we look forward to the next phase of implementation.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for your
thank you.
attention and participation.
Thank you, guys. Next on the agenda, we have any other additional questions that anybody wanted to ask? I also forgot to mention Jessica Olson. She joined, I think she's gone now, but from the Air District, Jess was here as well. Okay, well, if no other questions, we are at adjournment. So we thank you, everybody, for joining us. Hopefully you got some good information out of both the Nicola and the blueprint presentations. And we will look forward to seeing you next week or next month, and look for announcements on our next waterway cleanup as well. So thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thank you all.